and everything else comes later. I'm your leading man, David Weaver, and joining me, as usual, is my co star, Jake Wicks.
Hello, everyone out there.
And remember, you can find our respective YouTube channels at Gaming with Dweevis and Madcap888. And today on Flicks, as Hollywood continues to be shut down and nobody notices, we are here to talk about some other things we've seen recently. Myself, going to be talking about a handful of scary movies.
Ooh.
Evil Dead Rise, I finally saw
Hmm.
that. Renfield, which something people don't even probably remember came out recently, and a couple other little movies if I get to them that might be interesting to talk about. But also we get to have Mr. Wick's reaction here to the latest Dungeons and Dragons movie, which I'm very excited to hear your reaction to that because I really found that movie to be pretty enjoyable. So we'll get to that here in a minute. But yeah, that's it, and we're moving into uh. I wouldn't say our bi-monthly news because there is no news. There's nothing to talk about. Hollywood being shut down is the news. We already covered that, so we can move right into what we've been watching, which I think is what people care about anyways, right?
Probably, yeah.
So, um, should I lead us off? Should I? I think I
Yeah,
should.
let's get your stuff. You always have thousands of things.
I have thousands of things. Yeah, sometimes I do, I guess.
Sometimes.
Um, let me get right into Evil Dead Rise because that's the one I that was the big one for me. I really wanted to see that earlier this year when it came out in theaters. I missed it. Yada yada. Whatever. I caught it. It's on Max now, formerly HBO Max. Formerly HBO Go. Formerly this. How many name changes are we gonna get before they settle in on something? Jeez,
I
guys.
guess it depends on where the next big thing comes from. If Disney starts calling their thing Disney Plus Minus, everything's going to start becoming plus minus.
They're all gonna be minus soon.
I hope
Like,
so.
yeah, they're all gonna be very minus very soon. Um, so this is the fifth film in the Evil Dead franchise now. Uh, Uh, the last one they did was back in 2013, which
Hmm.
was more or less a remake of the original Evil Dead movie, where sans all the humor, they basically ripped all the humor out of it and just made it a straight up horror movie. Um, which is fine. I kind of liked that switch, and I did appreciate that movie for a lot of things it did. It got a lot of things right, and it paid a nice homage to the original Evil Dead movie. Plus, the original creators, Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, were heavily involved in that remake, in that production. This one, I feel like they were clearly more hands off. Now, you can make the assumption for yourself if that's a good or bad thing. All I can tell you is that, from my perspective, it was noticeable that their touch was missing on this. Um, it feels like there's a certain playbook there is now when you make a an Evil Dead movie, which is really weird to say that there's a by the numbers way to make an Evil Dead movie. Basically, introduce your characters, have them find the Book of the Dead, find cock up have create some sort of like cockamamie reason for them to read the words from the book to summon the demons and then have the demons possess them one by one and kill them off one by one. End of movie. Like, it feels like that's what you expect now when watching these things, and this movie does exactly that. There's some little differences that they throw in there that I kind of appreciated, but at the same time, it didn't go far enough with how it tried to push the envelope. The main difference is the setting. It's no longer a cabin in the woods. They took it where every horror movie eventually goes, into a city environment, and
Yes.
specifically they go to a high-rise apartment building, a la Evil Dead Rise.
Were
Get
you
it?
talking about the new Scream movie?
No,
Oh, I got confused there
I
for a
could
second. Sorry.
I could be talking about any other horror franchise because they all do this.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's kind of a derelict apartment building. They say some of the characters say it's like due to be knocked down in like a month or something like that. It looks completely decrepit. Like, why would anybody even still be living there? And yeah, um but that's the setting for where all this takes place at. And the main characters we follow is a family, a mom, her three kids, and her sister. There's not much said about like a father figure or anything else. They don't go very deep into characterizations in this thing, as most of these movies usually don't. um so yeah, the reason how they find the book and why they decide to how they end up reading from it, I'll give them a little bit of credit here. They actually come up with a little bit better of a reason for the words to be read than they did, like, say, in the last one, where it's just some idiot who found this book that was clearly not meant to be read, and he just decided to read it. Um, this one felt more accidental a little bit, so I was like, all right, I'll give you a little bit of pass there. But the thing I liked, the thing that kind of like took me aback by this, and I was wondering if they were going to go there or not, is that since it's a family with three kids, I would say one teenager and maybe two teenagers and one preteen kid, um, like they actually don't shy away from the horror moments with the kids, and this movie is gross, like full on gross horror. They not they like some of the ways that they get attacked and the ways that they attack others is cringy, to say the least. And I mean that in the best possible way when it comes to horror. Like there was one moment in particular with a cheese grater on skin that
Mm.
was particularly something I had to look away from because I have a phobia about cheese graters and that stuff. I'm like, because I feel like that don't they feel like they're like some sort of like a medieval torture device or something that somebody decided, oh, I could grate cheese with this.
Probably. Yeah. I've never understood how to clean those without melting your flesh off your hand.
Exactly. Whenever I clean a cheese grater, I'm like, how do I
Yeah,
approach this without losing all my skin?
right.
Um, so that's that aside. Um, like the thing that kind of kicks things off is the mom, and I don't think this is a spoiler because she's the poster character and she's the one that they signal early on. Like the mom is the one that gets possessed by the demons when they show up, and then she starts terrorizing the other particularly the family. She makes short work of the rest of the tenants in the apartment building. Like they take care of them pretty quickly. In what I will say is a very nifty little action scene. Some of the visual tricks they do in this movie are very interesting. Where uh, we see an entire action scene take place looking through a peephole of a door
Mm.
in a hallway, and it's really cool how they did it because the way that they frame the action and the way things happen, you're seeing and understanding how everything's happening, but it's kind of a surprise every time a new element pops up. Excuse me. And um and then, like, once that's taken care of, though, once she starts terrorizing the family, that's when it starts getting a little bit deeper into the stuff I really like about the Evil Dead stuff movies, which is the demons, more or less, in all the Evil Dead movies, even the funny ones, they're not so much about killing people. They're about messing with people's minds. Like they're like, we're gonna mess with you. They take over a loved one, and then they pretend to be that loved one, and they try to lure the people in. It's like, no, no, I'm still your mom. Come. Like there's one moment where the mom is like, clearly she's all torn up, right? And the little girl's like, it's like, what's wrong with you, mommy? And she comes up with this deep demon voice and says, there's nothing that a little hug won't fix, baby. You know, stuff like that. And like and then another scene where one of the kids is like, it's like, what's happening with you, mom? And the demon just kind of looks at him and has like a really sad droopy face and it's like, oh, mommy's with the maggots now, sweetheart. You know, like stuff like the mental scarring that the demons do to the characters, that's the stuff I enjoy. Like the demons are just effing with these people. um but this is where this movie kind of crosses over into standard horror fare. There comes a moment where it becomes more about the demons just wanting to kill them, and that's where the fun of these movies kind of this particular movie kind of fades away, and it just becomes a generic horror movie at that point. And then they sprinkle in some little things here and there, like nods to the original movies, some lines and some tools that they use to try to dispose of the demons, which was kind of fun, but still it was a bit too on the nose because lots of it felt out of place, especially when they bring a chainsaw into it. It's like somebody just had random person has a chainsaw in an apartment building. I don't think so.
I guess not.
um, but the thing that I found interesting that they didn't shy away from is eventually, and this may be a bit spoilery, so please, hit pause or whatever for about a minute or two while I say that, while I talk about this. Um, Eventually, the kids start getting possessed and turning into demons, and I didn't think they were going to go there. It's like I was trying to figure out, like, are these actual teenage kids or are these adults pretending to be kids? Because I was thinking about, like, what the acting process is and the directing process is for having a kid not just be a demon. We've seen zombie kids and stuff like that in TV shows, but these are the way they have to act is like completely evil. The way that they have to act and talk and behave.
You're
Um,
right.
so I was like, it was kind of nuts that they went that far with the kids.
Wasn't that
Um,
why some of the kids you hear about from older movies they get messed up later in life?
yeah, no, yeah,
Yeah.
particularly the little girl in this one, she'll need like a lifetime of therapy. Like, I don't know how they prepared her for some of the stuff that they did. Like, at one point they have her just in an elevator filled with blood,
Yeah.
with a bunch of like creatures attacking her at her from all angles. I'm like, therapy for life right there. Um uh but yeah, like they get to the cusp of doing something really interesting by the end of this movie, where I feel like the third act, it really there's it's no longer even attempting to be scary or creepy, with a twist that they add in there that I'm not going to really talk about. But what I wish had happened, and they kind of started it, but the twist kicked in and kind of ruined it, was once the other kids had been possessed, it became a family of possessed demons that were working together. And I was like, that's a really interesting dynamic for this type of movie. Um, and it was so brief how it happened, that it just I wanted more of that as opposed to what they gave us at the end, which was just an excuse to be excessively gory for no
Ah,
particular reason. So,
right.
um, but as an Evil Dead movie, I felt it was a bit lacking. Um, and but as a horror movie, it's well made. It's well acted for the most part. You could clearly tell this movie was. They all play American, like it takes place in California, but you could completely tell that this movie was not made in America, and these actors are not American. Like, their accents seep through from time to time. I believe, and I found this out after the fact, after I did some research. The entire thing was filmed in New Zealand, and all the actors are from New Zealand, and they let that slip from time to time, especially the little girl. She has a heart. Little kids can't hide their accents, but they tried. But I could still tell. Um,
Good old New Zealand, California.
excuse me.
I'm sure New Zealand looks nothing like California.
No. Well, the whole thing takes place at nighttime in an apartment
Oh,
building.
even
The
better.
the only reason you know it's California is, one, there's an earthquake. Uh, Two, you see a couple close-ups of some cars' license plates that say California on
I bet they did that just to establish where it was.
them. Yeah, yeah. Because other than that, they don't show anything. Oh, the one last thing I'll say is that the the prologue and the epilogue of the movie, which are kind of seemingly unrelated to the main portion of the movie, um, was completely unnecessary. I felt like the beginning of this movie was only in there to give people their blood and gore at the outset. That way that they don't get too bored by how long it takes to get things going. Like that
Right.
was it. They were like, "So here's a little bit of blood. Here's some gore. Okay, now give us 20 minutes to establish characters."
It's like it's like the pre-trailer because people are so mind dead nowadays. Or it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, let's give them 5 seconds of all the action in the trailer and then play the actual trailer because we are going to be bored by the trailer probably.
Yep. Yeah.
That's so sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man.
It felt that way, and then the way they tie it into that opening by the end of the movie, I was like, that's a bit of a stretch. Like it didn't pass muster, as they say.
Right.
But yeah, would I recommend it? If you're looking for a slick, kind of well crafted, and I would say well paced horror movie, it kind of fits the bill. There's nothing particularly wrong with the movie. I think it's a good movie. Where the problem comes into play for me is specifically the the Evil Dead name, and
Right.
I'm like, sometimes it felt like an Evil Dead movie, sometimes it didn't. Um, they didn't really utilize the space the way I wanted to. Like it was an apartment complex, a high rise. That didn't really come into play. Most of the movie takes place in the apartment itself, not the building. So it could have been any house with doors and bedrooms.
In
Um,
New Zealand even.
yeah, exactly. So they didn't really utilize that too much, but I mean, yeah, it's okay. It's fully worth streaming if you have if you have the Max subscription, like or if it pops up on cable or something. It's I would recommend it for that, but beyond that, no. Um, I will say, like, what might have helped it a little bit is if they did include some of the humor from the original trilogy into this. Like, not even like make it slapstick comedy, just kind of just give you something to laugh at from time to time. Like, even if it's something kind of absurd. Like that's the whole point of the demons. The demons are completely absurd with how evil they are. You kind of have to laugh at some of the stuff they say from time to time. Um, and they didn't really go there with this, and I think once again it was kind of a missed opportunity for them to take advantage of what Evil Dead is. So, yeah, I'm not upset I missed it in the theaters after watching it. So yeah, I don't know.
Huh.
I have not much else to say about it.
It's almost, I wonder if it would have been better as just a generic movie title, horror movie. If that would have made it better because you wouldn't be judging it based on the Evil Dead name. Kind of like kind of like me and something like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. It's like if they had just made a new IP and called it
Hmm.
something else, Legend
Yeah.
of Nintendo Man, I would have been like, "Hey, this is a great game," but because I'm comparing it to Zelda,
Hmm.
that's where it loses all its marks, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yep. So
Man.
yeah. Do you want to move on to one of your things?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess I might as well, since you're already talking about MGM and stuff, I might as well just talk about your old Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. I've got a lot of stuff. You'd actually be proud of how many movies I've seen over the
Mm.
past whenever, but a lot of this stuff is just popping up because of a combination of the Amazon Fire TV and Pluto. Those two
Oh.
kinds of things. Where it's like there's tons of movie channels on Pluto with real movies on them, and you'll be building Lego or something and just put it on the background. So it's like you watch it, but you're not tied down to sit there for 3 hours or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
But this one actually came up just because it was one of those random things on the Fire TV where it's like, hey, you can stream this now. I'm like, okay, how much does that cost? And surprisingly enough, it was free. I don't know why or how, but it's the same thing as Transformers when I talked about that. You had to pay for all of the Transformers movies, but the one that's currently in theaters at the same time is free. I'm like, so the brand new one that's still in theaters is free, but I got to pay for the one from like 30 years ago?
Yeah, that's weird.
Okay, whatever. But the thing that I thought was funny to start with on this movie is the, the sheer amount of how to stream it that there were. So for me, it was a thumbnail. I clicked on it and said watch now. I'm like, oh, I clicked watch now and it started watching. I'm like, that's cool. Okay. But then I looked back at the different options and I couldn't wrap my head around it. I have them up here, sort of. There's two that are missing and I don't remember what they were. But it starts with renting it. And here's where the confusion was for me because the rental price is $6 for Ultra HD, $6 for HD, and $6 for standard definition. So they want you to pay the same price for all versions of it. So if you want like 480p, $6. You want Ultra HD, $6. And then what I thought was weirder is that I'm streaming it for free, and yet they're presenting these rental options for stuff that's worse. So like I could technically have clicked the button to rent standard definition when the free one was playing in 1080p, I believe. And so it's just weird. And then they had three different buying options. Again, the same price for all of them. Why would you buy the standard def for $20 when you could buy Ultra HD and it should be able to go back to standard definition if you needed to?
Hmm.
Doesn't make any sense. And then below that, there were, I believe, four other options, which is where we always talk about this, where it's like watch with MGM Plus, watch with Paramount Plus, and then there was another set of options like Amazon Prime plus minus MGM, Amazon Prime plus minus Paramount Plus, and there's like 10 different options for streaming this movie. And I'm like, I
Oh my
don't know what's
god.
happening. I just clicked the free button, and then what I've always talked about with these movies that I just can't stand, and it's the same thing for pretty much everything, is that control is taken away from you by all these companies now. And I
Hmm.
started playing it, and I believe it was in standard def. I'm like, okay, well, that's not super great. And I just kept watching it. After 5 minutes, I think it switched to HD. I'm like, okay, well, at least we've made it to HD. And then after another 5 or 10 minutes, it made it to 1080. I'm like, okay, are we going to keep going? Are we going to keep going? Oh, no, it's staying at 1080p. All right, well, that's good enough
Oh.
for free. I'll take it. But it's like, just what we've always talked about, the sheer confusion of
Yep.
any of this crap. I
Yep.
don't I don't know where I watched the movie. I couldn't tell you. I would assume it was Prime that I watched on, but I just clicked the button and it played something in 1080p apparently from somewhere. So thank you wherever it came from. I hope the studio made money somehow. I have no idea how that works. I hope they do.
It's amazing that like nobody that's in charge of how any of this stuff operates is aware of the mass confusion that they've caused. Like
Yeah,
it's
maybe we just think about it too much. Maybe people are just so, I don't know,
well,
brain dead. They just click
we
on things when it says play it now and they just click it and they don't care if it's 5.1 sound. They don't care if it's Ultra
I'm I-
HD.
I'm gonna say yeah, that's true. A lot of people don't care about that stuff.
Yeah, they just click it and
My
go.
fiance's dad, whenever he watches TV here, he'll just randomly put it on standard definition TV, and he doesn't notice or care.
Yeah,
And
right.
it's like, okay,
I mean, for me, it's a constant battle. I have a 5.1 surround system. And I go, is it playing in 5.1? How do I tell?
yeah,
Please, somebody tell me where the option is.
yeah, because like if you put it on like a Blu-ray or a DVD or something, you have the audio option in the audio options, and you can
Right,
select it.
right. Yeah,
Now it's all automated if you do a stream.
exactly. Yeah. I it's just it's really confusing and weird. So, anyways, none of that to say that the movie was marred, but we always like to just call out examples of things and what we're talking about because a lot of people are like, I don't get it. I don't ever see any of these problems. But
Yeah,
then again, I know a lot of people who watch things on their phone before they get home even. I'm like,
that,
why are you watching it on your like 2-inch phone screen?
that's crazy.
Like I can wait to get home to watch the brand new Star Wars Episode 7 trailer. Like I don't have to be that, oh my god, here it is. Oh, look at that. That's so cool. Like I can wait to get home to my theater and put it on. So, I don't know, I think a lot of people just kind of slide through life clicking the next play button and
Well, that also helps diminish people's excitement for something. Like when you watch the trailer for, say, like you said, the new Star Wars movie or something like that,
Right.
it's like it's on your phone. It's like it feels so insignificant,
Yes. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that creates a psychological reaction where you're like I'm not as excited about this as I feel like I should be.
Pretty much. Well, and AV is one of my big things. I'm big into
Yeah,
AV,
yeah,
so
that's true.
I'm very, very demanding when it comes to what I've got. I've got 5.1, I've got this, I've got that. Play
Hmm.
it in that with this, and I want to know that you're doing that.
Yeah,
Like, so
yeah.
it's one of the most annoying things is me. I keep hitting the up button. Has it switched from standard definition? Is it moving up?
Well,
You know.
yeah, there's a movie I'll probably talk about later, but I actually had an audio issue with it where sometimes it feels like the master version, like on like whatever they put on their servers for you to watch, is like they have digitally lowered the volume on it,
Oh,
where like no matter how high we try to turn it up, it just sounds low.
oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I've encountered that from time to time, and
Well,
we
pretty
just
soon you won't be able to change the volume because they'll handle that for you. You don't need volume.
well,
We'll
pretty
figure
soon
it
they're
out.
just gonna randomly put something on for me. I don't even need to pick anymore.
Yeah. You don't even have a play button.
Yeah.
You get a remote that doesn't have anything on it.
No, no, not even a remote. They're just gonna turn the TV on for me when they feel
Ooh.
like I should be watching it.
That's probably, well, yes, you watch your TV most often between 5 and 9
Like,
p.m.
and yeah, and how do they? Well, that it's gonna be motion detected. You get in the room, they're like, okay, TV on. All right, here's a random thing.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the future we're heading towards.
I mean, Windows already does that. It says, we see you use your computer between these hours. Let's do updates after that.
Oh God.
But, anyways, all of that preamble to say that, yes, I did watch the movie, and I thought it was very good. So, if you want my initial impression, it's extremely good. Go watch it now. It's sad that it was overshadowed by, I believe, the Mario movie when that
Oh
came
yeah.
out, so nobody knew it existed. This, I feel like, should have been one of those summer blockbuster movies that did
Mhm.
really well in the box office.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things I don't think anybody knew about because the rage of the Mario movie was so extreme. That's all people were talking about. That's all people saw.
Mhm.
And to be perfectly honest, I don't really know that I can call out any faults in the movie.
Yeah.
I, I mean, I watched it, and when I came out of it, I went, I, I don't, that was a really good movie. I can't think of anything wrong. I mean, for once in my life, recently at least, I looked at the movie and I said, I liked the cast. They
Mhm.
all fit, they all belonged, and I didn't see anything wrong with like any kind of casting, any kind of agendas. There's nothing wrong with the movie as far
Mhm.
as like pacing, action, the sound was good, the music design was there. It was just a movie and you can enjoy it. And I thought that was really good. Obviously, Chris Pine is a really good actor.
Mhm.
He nailed all of his stuff. I thought it's funny they made him a bard. That he just carries his lute around, and that's like, what does he do? Oh, I'm the planner.
Yeah, he's a planner. Yeah, I was about to say he
Well,
plans.
what do you do once the plan is already in place? Well, I come up with another plan in case that one fails. So you make plans that fail. Well, no. I don't know. Everything was there. I figured her name, but she played the berserker, the main leading lady.
Oh, Michelle
Um,
Rodriguez, I think.
yes, I thought she was perfect in that role. She played
Mhm.
that very well. Obviously, she's good at those kinds of like brute strength roles of kind
Her
of portraying that.
her relationship problems were funny.
Yes, yeah. I all the characters were just so well thought out and done. I liked the sorcerer. He was
Mm.
funny when you see him. He's doing his magic tricks and
Yeah,
stuff. And
and it's important to note, like sometimes that actor, his name's Justice Smith, like he's kind of rubbed me the wrong way, specifically when he was like in the Jurassic Park movies. But
oh,
yeah, but I think most prominently biggest thing he's done really, I think he was the main lead in Detective Pikachu, the movie.
ugh.
So but yeah, no, I agree that he was good in this.
Yeah. I thought. I thought the story was actually well thought out, done, paced, and beginning to ending it didn't overstay its welcome. It served its purpose. They were able to get everything in there that they needed to, whether it was the jokes or the, kind of the serious stuff, and kind of mix it all together to form the story and kind of bring
Hmm.
it to closure. I wouldn't say it's a knock, but the ending was very easy to see coming with the whole reason he was getting that little tablet of
Mm.
resurrection.
Hmm.
That million miles away, I saw that one
Hmm.
coming. So that was a little bit unfortunate, but it didn't, like I said, it didn't ruin the movie. It didn't ruin anything. It was still a
Hey,
very heartfelt moment, which is
it's about the
good.
it's about the journey, not the destination.
Right, exactly. I mean, for me personally, not that there was a lot of it, but there was some excitement for me with some of the places that they were naming because I have played the Neverwinter games,
Hmm.
computer games, and so when they started mentioning like the Sword Coast, I'm like, "Ooh, does that mean we're going to Neverwinter?" And they're like, "Hey, we're going to Neverwinter." I'm like, "Yeah, Neverwinter!" And then they were talking about having to go to the Underdark, and while my memory's super fuzzy, I'm like, "Ooh, that was an expansion to the original Neverwinter game." I think it was it Shadows of Undertide and Hordes of Underdark? I think were the two expansions, I believe. I don't
Mm.
remember. This was a long time ago. But I just, just names. I may not remember specifically what the world looked like because this is like the 90s or early 2000s.
Yeah.
But it's just that kind of that familiar connection that you want when somebody creates a franchise that is tied to something that you know. When they
Hmm.
say Dungeons and Dragons, subtitle here, you expect something like, ooh, I've played Dungeons and Dragons, or I've played Neverwinter, I've played Baldur's Gate, or whatever it may be, whatever these things are that tie into all this stuff. And so you kind of look at it and go, ooh, like I don't specifically remember, but I feel like the gelatinous cube
Mm.
was an iconic type of enemy. Because I seem to remember that, where it's like there was a blob enemy and it had swords and bones and stuff in it, because that's what
Hmm.
it did. So just little things like that. I didn't recognize all of it, but
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of just fun to know kind of what they were doing, where they were going. Obviously, my Neverwinter looked a lot different than that one.
Yeah.
Mine was more riddled with plague and vermin and crime, but
Clearly the better version.
yes, clearly the better version. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to go too far into synopsis and whatnot because you did that way in depth when you talked about it.
Mm.
So I think that was the last flicks, even maybe, that you talked about it.
I think it was like two flicks back maybe or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, if you want, go listen to that if you want the whole synopsis. But I'm more or less here to just say that I can confirm that pretty much everything you said is spot on. It was a fantastic movie, and even if you don't know Dungeons and Dragons, I still think you'd get an enjoyment out of that as just a fantasy movie in
Hmm.
general, like a fantasy type comedy. I mean, it kind of follows a la like a Star Trek, like the Chris Pine type stuff.
Hmm.
If you've seen those kinds of movies, so
Yeah.
if you're looking for a fantasy movie, it might still be free if you have an Amazon stick to go boot it up, and I guess you'll be playing it 1080p from somewhere. So get that while it's free
Yeah.
and watch it because I recommend it
Yeah. And
wholeheartedly.
it's got one of my favorite dragons in it.
I wonder how disappointing that was to people.
How could you possibly to be disappointed with this dragon?
Well, because
I,
most people are like dragons are cool and extreme, and then that comes out and you go,
this is
oh,
extreme. This is extreme.
yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
It's yeah.
I guess in a little way they redeem themselves with the dragon at the end. In
Yeah.
in a little way,
Yeah.
but
And I liked I don't remember if I talked too much about this character when I talked about it, but I remember really liking the extra guy that they pick up halfway through the movie, the one
oh yeah,
their
the
guide.
paladin.
Yeah, like I at first I was like, I don't know how I feel about this guy, but the longer he was with them, the more I realized I think he was probably like my favorite character in the whole movie.
He was pretty well done. I like in the end when he leaves and he's like, and he's walking in a straight line. And oh, there's a rock there. Oh no, he's walking over the rock in a straight line.
Yeah, they nailed the air of perfection with him, right? Because he's supposed to
Right.
be perfect, and they nailed it. So like you said, once again, from the casting to the execution, at the script level and the direction, the movie is like, not to say it's the best movie ever made, but like you said, it's kind of flawless for what it
Right.
is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even the jokes, I feel like they pretty much all hit the mark.
Hmm.
Like from, the beginning simple joke where they're telling their story in the prison, and he's like, is I forget his name, is the guy here? Because I really, really need the guy for the story to work. And just like, oh, just tell the story. And then they end up doing the thing with
Yeah.
him, but then the people are like, but we were going to, you were already, and they didn't actually need to do what they did.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil
Yeah.
that moment, but
Yeah. Because we think we're in on it, like what he's talking about, but the assistance this person's going to provide was completely different than
yeah,
what they were insinuating.
right, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. You could sit here and talk about all the stuff, but go watch it.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that's really easy to sit there and talk about each individual scene.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
which we're not going to do.
No, I would try to spoil as little as possible for people. Because I mean, when a movie deserves to be watched, it should be watched. So
Hmm.
go enjoy it for yourself, and form your own opinions on it. But yep, I recommend it highly. Watch it wherever it's streaming. I couldn't tell you where.
If you find a button that says play, just push it.
You just push it and go. Just push and go.
That's amazing.
Or you could rent a worse version for $6 if you wanted. So, maybe rent
Yeah,
the standard definition.
let's do that. Sure.
Stupid
And
services.
just for the record, I think when I watched it, it was on Paramount Plus because it's a Paramount movie. So if you have that, it should still be on there. I can't say 100% for certain though.
That's the funny thing too, is because when we looked at the end, we're like, why does this say MGM Plus? And then we played the movie again, like, oh, there was an MGM logo in the beginning. So it is somehow MGM related.
Oh my God, just adding to the confusion.
But you know what's worse? One final thing, because well, I guess I did it with Transformers. Doesn't it seem kind of criminal that they auto adjust your stream quality? Because when we rented the Ultra HD version of one of the Transformers movies, I forget, so that we could finish off the whole set, it started playing in standard def and then moved up to HD and then moved up to 1080, then to Ultra HD with HDR and that. So technically, it should always be in Ultra HD. If you're paying the money for that, it shouldn't start anywhere but Ultra HD.
Yeah,
And it shouldn't be able to say, ooh, your bandwidth seems a little low. We're going to take you down so it can keep playing, because that's not what you paid for.
it seems like a scam.
It's all a scam.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like they're throttling you.
Yeah,
And
they get to choose because, ooh,
yeah,
we think your stream's running a little bad, so we're going to take it down.
yeah, and for them, it's saving up bandwidth, right? Like
Right.
it's bandwidth issues because there might be other people streaming it, and in order for everybody to stay at a consistent quality, they need to reduce the other people down to a
Right.
different quality. So I could totally see that being the case.
And it's the same thing that irks me about like a YouTube, where when I go watch, I always switch the video to whatever I'm watching, at 1440p, 1080, whatever. I switch it to that because it starts on like 1080p auto. And that means, well, it's 1080p in a great world, but we're going to move it up and down depending on
Well,
how we think it needs to
we
be.
we've been more or less programmed to accept this as like just that's just the way the internet is because anything you watch anywhere you're probably going to run into a moment where suddenly the quality drops out
Yep,
and they're going to blame your connection or we have a bad connection or like or something like there's some sort of issue that justifies them doing it and they've basically like I said we've been kind of trained to accept that so people don't really question it except for like yourself and probably myself, where we question it because we know what we should be getting versus what they're giving us. And we know
exactly.
what our internet connection is. So we know it's strong. Like if it says like you have a weak internet connection and I check my Wi-Fi and I'm like, actually, no, it's strong. Like,
Right.
what?
Yeah, and I
So
don't know how many places offer this anymore. I would assume none. But I know it was a thing in the past where if you say you rent the Ultra HD version, does that then let you download it so you don't have to deal with the bandwidth and it will play in that quality?
I think you can do that for the most part. I like, for instance, I'm pretty sure Netflix lets you do that.
That's the only one I could remember, I think,
Yeah,
that let you do that.
Netflix lets you download it at a certain quality. Uh, I think I can't say for certain, but one of the digital services I use for all of my purchased digital movies called Vudu,
Ah, yes.
I believe they let you do that as well.
And I thought
But
Disney Plus did, or whatever it was called back in the day. I
I
thought, but
I don't know.
I think that's the only way you could legitimately get your Ultra HD unhindered.
Yeah, the it this is why physical for life, man.
Yes, yeah,
Like
pretty much.
that's the only way you can guarantee the quality of what you're watching. It's the
And that
only
you'll
way.
have it forever.
Yeah. Mhm. Yep.
Yeah.
Any case,
Woohoo! What else do you
um,
have?
so I saw the Renfield movie. I don't know if you remember this or not from earlier in the year. I would be surprised if
Oh
you did.
no, not really.
It was the Nicolas Cage as Dracula movie. And Renfield is the title character is his servant, his familiar. Um, and Played by Nicholas Holt. Um, Two Nicholases in the same movie. Um, this was how to kind of put it out there up front about my encompassed feelings on this movie. It was cute but extremely forgettable. Like this is not something that'll be like on your radar for longer than like maybe 24 hours after you've watched it, and it's like, and then it'll quickly fade away. Um, and I kind of got what they were going for here. The movie is like that mixture of really funny but really gory. Like, cause like the deaths in this movie, they are extremely. The way my fiance put it, she asked, is like, why are all the deaths so wet? And that's because like when somebody dies,
Yes.
it's like somebody popped a water balloon with filled with
Mm,
blood, and
yeah.
it's like it's so ridiculous and over the top, the deaths in this movie, with the blood shooting out everywhere.
That's that's like we caught the random, was it Lost Boys, I think? The
Uh
very end of Lost Boys. And I was like, that's right. All these 80s movies have these extreme, like when you die, blood
Yes,
explodes everywhere and shoots out, and
yes,
that's what it
yes,
reminds me of.
yes. That's exactly it, actually. Um, So, like that seems to be its big signature thing that they tried to establish in this movie. That they really wanted to hammer in really well into your mind. It's like if you're gonna remember this movie for anything, it's probably gonna be that. Which is sad because the reason I wanted to see this was because I wanted to see Nicolas Cage's Dracula, because everybody knows Nicolas Cage is a scene chewer. Like the dude just overplays and overacts just about anything he can. So it's like him playing Dracula. It's like, oh, what a perfect fit. Um, and I'm not gonna say he wasn't bad. Like he did good as Dracula, but one, he's not the main character, so he's not in the movie as much as some might want him to be. But two, he's pretty straightforward. He doesn't have a whole lot to do. Most of his uh, characters taken up with how resentful he is of his servant Renfield wanting to live his own life and no longer be a servant anymore. And that's where a lot of the comedy comes from, where Renfield, doing this for generations now, taking care of Dracula and saving him from, people that want to kill him, and then helping him rejuvenate and from being injured and whatnot. We start out with him at a group therapy session where other people there are talking about issues they have either with their bosses or with loved ones. And of course he's there because he has an issue that he's been taking care of Dracula for like generations. He doesn't tell them that, but that's kind of what he's there for. that plus his job is to bring Dracula food, so he doesn't like bringing him victims that he doesn't feel are undeserved because he still has his humanity. So he targets the people that are the the causes of these people being in group therapy. So when somebody goes there
Oh.
complaining about their terrible boyfriend, he goes and he finds the boyfriend and takes him to Dracula to get fed on. That's his plan anyways. Eventually he gets wrapped up in this other thing and this is kind of where the movie I think gets a little bit overly complicated. Like this felt like it should have been a fairly straightforward movie. They end up bringing in this like family mob that runs the city that takes place in. There's like police corruption, and Renfield kind of gets caught up in the middle of this when he's trying to take somebody that is involved in the mob to Dracula, and it ends up becoming a Renfield versus the mob and Dracula, because eventually Dracula meets the mob and they end up creating a pact with one another because their their ideals are the same. They want to take over the world, and of course Dracula has his own version of that. Um, and they was what's her face? Aquafina is in this, and I completely blew my mind. I was like, "Wait, she's in this?" I okay.
Oh.
She plays a cop. She plays apparently the only cop on the entire police force who's not corrupt. Um, aside from her sister, and this is where the characterizations in this movie are so by the numbers and lacking in depth. Like they establish she has a sister who works for the FBI. We only see them on screen one moment together, and it's very fleeting, and after that they have a couple phone calls with each other. It's very clear, and they don't really do much beyond that. It's very clear that they're establishing the sister character just to become a victim later on, so as like some sort of like way to draw, how should I put it, trap somebody. It's like, we have your sister, come save her or whatever. um it I was The movie's like under an hour and a half long. I feel like this movie was chopped up really bad in the editing room, is what it
That's
felt
never
like.
good.
Like it had a lot of things going on in it that maybe would have fit better if the movie's a bit longer, where they could have fleshed some of this stuff out, because they had this kind of quasi romance with Renfield and the Aquafina character when they get to know each other, that really doesn't go anywhere, do anything. Like I don't think you need a romance, but they set it up. They just didn't do anything with it. Um, and it just completely it quickly shifts from one thing to the next without really wrapping anything up in a satisfactory way. Like the overarching story of Renfield trying to separate himself from Dracula, that seems to be the main thing that they kept intact in the editing room, where everything else just felt cobbled together. And there's also, I would say, there's a bit of a lack of consequences, a little bit, where there are some things that happen that, like, it was like, okay, this is clearly happening to create a character motivation to push Renfield over the edge to do this thing. But then by the end of the movie, they reverse all of it, and I'm like, okay, so all that stuff, it didn't matter, it happened at all, because it's like it never happened. So,
That's always
um,
fun.
yeah, like I said, like I don't want to be too harsh on the movie, but it kind of didn't deliver what I was looking for with it. Like, um, I wanted a fun Nicolas Cage as Dracula movie. They didn't really deliver on that as much as I wanted to. And then on top of that, the only other thing I guess I wanted was a coherent, structured story. And they kind of the movie was just kind of flopping around through its 90-minute runtime, and it kind of failed at delivering that as well. Um, a lot of untapped potential, I would say, in this movie, and like they really put an emphasis on the gore. Like it's almost like it was like that was the shiny thing to distract you from the fact that the story is like lacking. It's like here's a large segment where Renfield just starts ripping cops apart. It's like ripping arms off, smashing heads, blood everywhere, and and making a fun action sequence out of it. And I'm like, I mean, that stuff is fine, but it doesn't replace like a coherent story. It's like, okay. Um, so I don't know. I would actually probably steer people away from this unless you're an avid Nicolas Cage fan and you really want to see him as Dracula. I would say there's no reason to watch this. It's highly forgettable and it's just kind of a mess. So
It sounds, yeah, kind of not great. Just from your description of it alone. It,
yeah, yeah, it's almost like my description in my review of it is kind of a mess, and that kind of reflects the movie. It's kind of all over the place. So yeah.
Jeez. Well, I don't know. I guess if you try to go with that thing, like you said, too much wet blood, as it were, or deaths, that's you kind of sell yourself on that, and I guess that's what you rely on, right?
Yeah, I was actually excited for the moment where Dracula was starting to team up with the mob because one of my favorite schlocky movies from the 90s was a movie called Innocent Blood. And it was a vampire movie, but the theme of that movie was a lone vampire tries to feed on a mob boss and she fails at killing him, so he ends up turning into a vampire. Then he starts turning all of his mob guys into vampires, and he creates like a vampire mob. And it's like like I was like, that's so dumb, but it's also so awesome. It, it's so schlocky, and I was like, okay, if they do that in this movie where Dracula creates like a like vampire mob or something like that that he commands, like a gangster mob. I'm like, okay, I can buy into that. That's kind of dumb, but I like that. It's fun. But they didn't even do that. It's like it's over in the blink of an eye. So,
Jeez. Oh man.
so yeah. Also, this for some reason Dracula doesn't like turning people into vampires in this. He just feeds on them. There's no turning people into vampires,
But how do you
which
create your army?
he turns them all into familiars. Apparently, he can
Oh,
have an unlimited number of familiars, which they only share a portion of his power.
interesting.
Yeah,
All right. Well, I guess that's one way to do it.
something like that. Yeah. So yeah. Hey, case, you got anything else?
I have been wanting to talk about Oculus. Have you heard of that from 2013?
Oh yeah, with Karen Gillan in it, also known as
Yes.
Nebula from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, well, there you go. See, you always know more than I do.
Yeah, I did a review for that on my long time ago now defunct podcast before we were doing this. But yes, I have seen that movie.
Yeah, this is a Pluto movie. It's
Ah.
I've got this obsession whenever I turn on Pluto, I like to just click on the horror channel and just see what's playing. I don't know why. Most of them are awful, but this is one that kept playing over and over and over and over. I'm like, God, man, why is this always on? And there was one day, like on a weekend, where I caught it and the beginning credits were rolling. And I'm like, okay, all right, it's time. This is finally time to see what the heck this thing is about. And surprisingly enough, for what it was, I actually enjoyed the movie quite a bit.
Hmm.
I think that I think that they could have and should have done more. It's one of those where you wish they would have really taken the idea and ran with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for what it was, it was fine. The basic premise of the movie is like this old mirror that's existed through a lot of time now. And whenever somebody has a mirror in their house, it starts inducing kind of hallucinations and kind of paranormal events that occur in the house. And it's based on some kind of short film. I watched the short film, it was not anywhere near as good. So I'm
Mm.
surprised they got this much out of that idea
Hmm.
from the short film. But it's kind of interesting because it takes place in two time periods where it's like kids, where they're 10, 12 years old, and then there's the adult versions, and the adult versions went through all of this horror as kids. When the dad got the mirror, they moved into a new house. That's like a common theme with horror movies, moving into a new house.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know why, but it's like your apartment thing.
because it's very anxiety inducing.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, it creates a lot of other storytelling elements. Like,
Hmm.
oh, we're newly married, or we have new kids and we're in
Yeah.
this house.
Yeah. New beginnings.
Right, that fall apart rapidly.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, they get the mirror. He puts it in his office, and just weird stuff starts happening. And it all kind of devolves. Like the dog goes missing, and then the wife starts. They see when the kids are playing outside, they see the dad with another woman, quote unquote, in the office,
Hmm.
and so she finds out about that when the woman doesn't actually exist. He starts having weird hallucinations. Eventually, he chains her up in the room, and he just tells the kids, oh, mom's sick. She needs her time to heal, and they end up in there eventually, and she's been chained up the whole time, and she's gone crazy too, and it's just all kinds of insanity happening. And I think the more interesting part is the cuts that they do to the like the adults, where they're 20 something, 30 something, I don't know. The son was in a mental ward because I guess it ends with like the mother and the father die, so the kids are kind of just left there, and the police show up and they say, "Oh, the mirror did it. The mirror did it, and it killed them all," and blah blah blah. But all the police see is the father killed the mother, and then the son had to shoot the father because the mirror made them do this. So the son's admitted to the psychiatric ward. Since the daughter didn't kill anybody, she's kind of left to her own devices. And after all this time has passed, he's made to believe there was no evil. Your father was a murderer, and this is what happened. And so he's released from the psychiatric ward. He meets up with the sister, and she, on the like the vice versa end of that, she has been investigating the mirror like crazy for the past 10, 15 years. And so now you have this kind of diametrically opposed viewpoint. The son is like, well, my father was a murderer. Let's just let it go. And she's, no, 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 the mirror, look, look, look. And she's got this whole setup where they go back to the house, they put the mirror back in there, and she's got the whole place rigged with cameras. She understands the mirror. I love the part where they go back into the past of the mirror because she's researched all the owners, and that was so cool to have them go back in the past. And they actually cut to little clips of the past saying, well, this guy owned it, and then he did this. And she eventually, cut her own jaw off. And then this other guy owned it, and he did this, and then this, and then this person died. They died of thirst in a bathtub full of water. And like these, I love kind of the weird things that they come up with the different scenarios of all the previous owners. And so
Hmm.
she's got this whole spiel. She's got cameras all over the place, and she's got like, okay, this one's on battery backup. So when the power goes out, the camera will keep filming, and I've got all of these timers set to remind us to eat, remind us to drink. And whenever the timer goes off, eat food. Whenever the timer goes off, do this. Whenever the timer goes off, change the camera battery. And it's really well done. And she's got plants all over because one of the things is the plants just die in the house. And I'm not going to explain the whole thing, but that's the general gist of it. And you
Hmm.
start switching back and forth between the two time periods. They'll go with the kids, and you go, oh, so that's kind of what's happening. And then they cut back, and just the stuff starts happening to them eventually. And just the rigmarole that they go through with the different scenarios and how it ends. I think the ending of the movie was one of those that's not extreme. I'm not going to say it's the best ending ever, but it's one of those that as I was watching and the ending happened, it was one of those where you just kind of go, oh man. And you just kind of stop. You don't say anything, and the rest of the movie kind of plays out there, and you're just sitting there going, wow, really? Oh man, that's just oh, and it's kind of one of those stoppers
Hmm.
that gets you. and it gets you pretty good. So I think from beginning to end, the movie's good. It wraps up nicely. I just wish they had kind of done more with the theme. They could have really flushed it out,
Hmm.
and kind of drawn it all out. But if you're looking for kind of just a fun horror movie with a little bit of, I wouldn't say the movie's scary. So if you're, you don't want to go see a super scary movie, it's not like that.
It's like a thriller.
Yeah, it's more of a psychological thriller than
Hmm.
anything. There's some moments in there where there's ghost type stuff, but I don't know. I thought it was just a fun little movie to watch. It's not that long. It's like an hour and a half maybe. So it's not going to take too much of your time unless you watch it on Pluto. Then there's commercials and it takes like 4 hours to watch. But I would say I recommend it. We're coming up on Halloween.
Hmm.
It was a good movie. It's 10 years old. I think it still holds up well. And yeah, go check it out if you're looking for something like that. If that kind of thing interests you. Kind of like, what was it? Is it Triangle or The Triangle? I always get it
Tr-
confused.
Triangle.
Just Triangle, right?
Yeah.
Not The Triangle. There's another movie called The Triangle, and that's not the one.
No, it's just Triangle.
That's one which you'll agree. I'm
Yep.
not going to say anything about it. If you want an interesting thriller type movie, it's not real. I wouldn't say it's scary. I wouldn't say it's really all that gory. So I'll give you those warnings if you're like, oh, I don't want to see that.
Hmm.
Watch Triangle. Do not watch a trailer. If you rent the Blu-ray or the DVD, try not to watch the beginning menus. Just go into it without anything. I kind of feel like that movie kind of has the same vibe as this one, just
Yeah.
even more extreme. Um, like you don't know what's going on type of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go. That's probably all I've got for today. I've got some more, but we'll save
Okay.
those for another time.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what I'm trying to. I have remnants of that movie in my memory.
It's not
So
super memorable. I mean, if I'm being perfectly honest.
I mean, I remembered Karen Gillan. I remembered Mirror, and I somewhat remember the ending.
Yeah, well, you're a Flicks guy.
Yeah.
You know everything, so
Well, I retain information more than I know everything.
that's true.
Um, yeah. So like I do remember feeling somewhat positive about it. So yeah.
That's probably a good way to describe it. Somewhat positive. I'm not gonna say it's the best movie ever. Triangle, if we're putting
I
those two together, is way better.
I originally saw it because Karen Gillan was in it because this was the first thing she did when she left Doctor Who.
And Karen Gillan was the older daughter.
Yeah.
Okay, because the mother is actually Bo Katan. I
That's
forget her
right.
her her
That
name, but yeah,
yeah,
she's Bo
I know who you're
Katan
talking
from the
about.
Mand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought
So
that was interesting. I'm like, oh, it's you. What are you doing in this movie?
that's amazing. And it's funny you refer to her as Bo Katan. I think of her as Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica.
There you
So
go.
so yeah. Um what you call it? Okay. So I'll try to throw in my last couple movies here. They're much smaller movies to talk about. Um the first one, it's gonna sound like I'm gonna tell you the premise of this. You're gonna be like, "Whoa, that sounds cool." But just let me talk about it.
Okay, I'll
Um,
react appropriately.
all right, I saw a movie. Its title is 65. The premise of it, the elevator pitch, is space dinosaurs.
My first thought was like Prop 65. This is a doc.
No.
Space dinosaurs? No.
Yeah.
What? Like
Like
talking space dinosaurs?
basically what we start out is it's in a undisclosed future. We're on an undisclosed planet, not Earth, where this person is a character played by Adam Driver, also known as Kylo Ren. Um, whether he likes it or not, he will forever be Kylo Ren.
Of
Um,
course. He can't escape that.
where he's prepping for this long space flight, and to some arbitrary reason of like we need to do this for the money because our daughter needs a surgery and yada yada yada. I'm going on this flight thing. Um, and he's the pilot of some sort of ship going, he's got a crew that's in hypersleep and he's transporting them. They encounter some asteroid belt that damages the ship and they crash land on some unknown planet.
Ooh.
They get out of the ship, lo and behold, it's a planet full of dinosaurs.
That sounds so stupid.
And basically
Uh,
the entire movie is about him and one other survivor of the crash trying to reach a portion of the ship that has an escape ship on it so they can use it to get off the planet. And them, of course, navigating the dangers of the riddled planet, trying to get to that spaceship.
Now you haven't
Um,
said yet, I don't think, are these dinosaurs as we know them, or are these like evolved talking dinosaurs with guns and
no, these are
stuff?
dinosaurs as we know
Like
them.
Jurassic Park type.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, now I'm going to I'm going to do something here. I'm going
Oh
to give you a
no.
spoiler, and the reason why I'm going to give this spoiler is because this movie gives this away. Like the big twist of this movie, they give it away in the opening credits. For whatever reason, they
It's not a
it's not
twist
even
then.
it's not even like a subtle thing like, oh, you catch on to it. They literally spell it out for you in written words what the twist of this movie is. It's the weirdest decision I've ever seen. Um, they tell you right after they crash landed on the planet, you know, they tell you the title of the movie comes up 65, and it's like, okay, then it says million years ago, and then it's okay, and then underneath that it says, and it shows the planet, and it says Earth.
So these are aliens that traveled to Earth 65 million years ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's like that seems like that would have been the twist you find out at the end of the movie,
Right.
but instead they tell you at the very beginning. I was like, so the entire movie, I was just sitting there thinking like, it wasn't. There was no mystery to it. Like I knew everything. I knew everything. Like there was no like, I wonder if this is Earth. I wonder when this was. And it's like, okay, all right, you people really screwed the pooch on this one.
Yeah, that
Um,
should have been a very Twilight Zone thing. Because I remember a couple of Twilight Zone episodes where it's like that. You see somebody in a house, like a regular human house, and then these aliens land
oh yeah.
in the house. And then
Oh, I
at the
love that
end,
episode.
yeah,
I
you
love
realize
it.
that the aliens are just astronauts from
Yeah,
Earth, and
yeah,
they're on the alien planet.
yeah.
Like, that's how this should have been.
That was one of my favorite episodes of Twilight Zone as a kid.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
This little old lady versus these
Yeah,
little miniature
yeah,
astronauts.
yeah.
It's so good. Um,
Oh man.
but no, yeah, that's exactly right. Like this is like defies all logic of like storytelling.
It's probably because, like you said, they need that hook in the beginning. They're afraid people will just walk out
Yeah,
because
I guess
don't
so.
have that. They don't have the time anymore to spend the movie figuring it out and going, "Oh wow, really? That's what that was."
Yeah. Yeah. The movie basically boils down to just it's a survivalist movie. People, trying to get from point A to point B without being eaten by a dinosaur. Um, Now, where you think the attraction would come in here is like the variety of dinosaurs that they have attack them, right? The things that they encounter. I'm gonna say for the most part, these are unknown dinosaurs, like with the exception of like a T Rex from time to time. Even then, you don't get a T Rex dinosaur that is really kind of involved in a scene until the very end of the movie. So like, and a lot of that stuff was filmed at nighttime, so they're hiding poor
Mm,
special effects.
yep, yeah.
Um, but the thing, and I didn't put my finger on it. I was trying to like after we watched the movie, we were discussing how we felt about it, and I was telling her it's like there was something really lacking in it. I don't really know what it was, and then I figured it out. I was like, okay, the beginning of the movie, other than the people that died in the wreck, right? There wasn't a single person that died in this movie. So
Hmm. Wow.
like for instance, you look at Jurassic Park when the dinosaurs break loose, our main characters live, but there are still people that died,
Right.
right?
Yep.
So there's a danger that's present from these things. From beginning to end of this movie, there's only the two of them, and they are the main characters, so they're not gonna die.
Huh.
So there's no, you don't. This is the first dinosaur movie I've ever seen where not a single dinosaur kills somebody.
They're nice. They're friendly.
They just don't have an opportunity to kill them. Like there's even a scene early on in the movie that was very baffling. Um, when he first gets off the ship after the crash landing, they crash landed in like a moat or something like that. or a swamp, and he goes outside to look at where all the cryo sleep people, like their containers had fell out into the water. Like some of them were out, their bodies were out, and they were just dead. They were just floating in the water. As he's moving around out there, you see something swimming in the water with him, and it's like some sort of creature. Well, what would you assume naturally? Like one, either he's going to get attacked, or two, this thing's going to come along and it's going to snag one of the dead bodies that's just floating in there for food.
Right.
Guess which one happens?
Neither.
Exactly. We never see that monster ever. The one that was swimming around in there. We just saw its tail and that was it. It never came back ever.
Huh.
It was such a weird setup. Like it's like so we didn't even see a dead body getting eaten. It's
Man.
such a bizarre choice. Like cuz if you want to go through how story arcs and story and scripts work, you have to give at least one or two other survivors so that while you're traveling from point A to point B, you lose them to a dinosaur attack or something. Like
Right.
that's what gives you the tension.
There has to be stakes. It's
Yeah,
like a video game where you don't. There's no death ever.
yeah,
What's the point? There's no way
exactly.
to fail.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it was completely lacking in tension at all. So and even at the end when they were struggling to get the ship off the planet, I was like, okay, um, whatever. Of course, they're going to get off the planet. Like, yeah. I will say there is one other additional twist that they add in midway through the movie that they don't that they kind of telegraph at the beginning of the movie. And if you're paying attention to it, it's not that big of a surprise. But there is another driving force as to why they need to get off the planet. And I'll just leave it at that. Um,
Okay.
but it was very obvious to me. It's like, oh, I know what that is. It's like, okay.
Right.
Um, so, would I recommend it? Meh. I mean, if you just got to see everything with dinosaurs in it, then maybe it might be worth watching. Adam Driver's fine in it. The acting in the movie is fine. That wasn't really a problem. It's just the movie around him was kind of meh. Like, it makes me wonder how this thing ever got made. Like like who looked at the script and was excited about it? I don't know how anybody could look at this and go like, this sounds amazing. Let's make it.
It's very
It
weird.
almost seemed like a good like pilot episode to maybe a TV series or something like that,
Yeah,
maybe.
I could see that.
So I don't know, but in any case, yeah,
That
whatever.
sounds like an edgy TV show name nowadays as well. Watch 65 on the CW.
Yeah, right. Didn't they had one that was called 100, right?
Yeah, the 100, I think, or something, right?
The 100.
I don't remember.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
65. Yeah, exactly.
We should just make a bunch of shows with numbers for names.
There you go.
72.3.
Yes, in Cincinnati. Um, but yeah, uh, I don't know. I had one other thing. I don't know. Should I squeeze it in here?
Sure, why not?
Okay. It's an older movie. It's from back in 2015, but we watched it the other night and we actually had a lot of fun with it. I think this is probably to end on a good note. This movie I think is probably the best one of the bunch for
Oh,
us.
okay.
It was a 2015 movie starring Elijah Wood, also known as Frodo from Lord of the Rings.
Right.
It was called Cooties.
Oh boy. This
Um,
is where I tune out.
it's a kind of a parody horror type of thing, and it takes place at a school where a virus is going around and it's infecting all the kids and it's turning them into basically zombies.
But why do they have to title the movie?
Well, because it's a play on cooties because the virus only affects kids. And there is a bit of a twist as to why it only affects certain. It doesn't affect all kids. It only affects certain kids of a certain age. So they I think that's where that plus like I said, it's a parody. So it's
It's a
like
comedy, right?
yeah, it's kind of a comedy.
Yeah.
So the idea because like the virus spreads through chicken nuggets
Oh
which
my god.
that was actually the grossest part of the movie because they
Oh,
actually show you the process of how a chicken nugget is made from the slaughterhouse up to how it's processed.
right.
But they show you like this black sludge inside the nuggets, and then there's like a close up shot of a kid eating it, and the sludge just spewing out of the chicken nugget. I'm like, why would you eat that?
I don't know.
All I know is that my fiance was like, it's like I'm never eating chicken nuggets ever again,
Wouldn't it be great if you were eating chicken nuggets at the
right?
time?
Um, but yeah, I mean that's how the virus gets spread and everything, and uh, it's it is kind of like a boilerplate zombie movie where it's just a teachers versus the students, and the students are a bunch of zombies that are chasing them down, and them trying to get out of the city. Like that's really, there's not much more to it. The comedy comes in with just the students versus teachers aspect of it. Like that's where the comedy comes into play. Certain teachers didn't like certain students, so they're not too upset when they become um, zombified or whatever. Um, so there's different quirks with some of the teachers that are kind of funny. Uh, One of the things I kind of wish that they would have done a little bit more of, they did it one time at one point, which I thought was really funny, is the play on the process of school. Basically, like one of their plans was to wait until 3 o'clock when all the parents show up to pick up the kids, and they were like, okay, the parents will help us out. Well, one of the parents pulls up and they're not even paying attention, and the kid, like, you see the kid walking up to the car, and the kid almost kind of looks at the camera and smirks, and he's like, you know what I'm gonna do. And so he gets in the car, and then he immediately starts attacking. He kills his baby brother, turns his baby brother into a zombie, and then he attacks and kills the mom. It's like I kind of wanted that on a mass scale of like all these parents showing up and this happening to them all. But they didn't. Either they didn't have the budget, or they just decided not to do it. I don't know. But yeah, it's a fun movie. It's like at one point they all get dressed up in school gear, like sports gear, to have all these adults beating the crap out of these little zombie kids. Like, one of my favorites is, like, he has this machine that he kind of created a weapon out of a one of those things that launches the baseballs.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and he uses that to like nail all these kids in the face with it. Yeah, it's funny. I enjoyed it. It's exactly what it said it was going to be, and it was well made. It's got good actors in it. Rainn Wilson's in it from The Office. I thought he was funny. Um, yeah, out of everything I talked about, I would recommend that actually. Like, I had the
Wow.
most fun with that one.
Okay.
So, that there's not much more to say about it. It's kind of like, if I said anything more about it, it'd basically be just picking out specific scenes that I thought was funny. It's like that. I don't need to do that.
You're right.
So,
That sounds like a random Pluto find. It's just-
I actually, where did I watch it? It was on. It was either on Max or Peacock. It was one of those two. I can't remember which one it
or a
was.
fusion of the channels,
Oh.
like Prime. uh,
So, yeah. Hey guys, that's it. I think we're done, right?
I think so. Some decent stuff today.
Yeah, nothing but movies this time.
Wow,
I
that's
know.
true. I do have a couple TV shows to talk about pretty
Yeah,
soon.
okay.
So those are coming.
We'll be on the lookout for that.
You better be.
So I'll go ahead and wrap us up here. For those that will eventually see this on our YouTube channel, which is up and running, by the way. We just couldn't live stream this episode, but we should be able to live stream the next one on there. This episode will eventually make it on there as well. You should be able to find links to the podcast proper in the description below. But for everybody else, you know where to find us. We're on all those different services for the podcast, the audio only version. And just reiterating, my YouTube channel is Gaming No Dweevis, and yours is uh,
Madcap 888.
yep. And don't think there's much more to go over there. So we'll be back next time with some bits action. Uh, I'll
Yes.
say that my promise of playing Harry Potter on there is not going to happen because I ran into other technical issues. So apologies for that. But I'll have plenty of other games to talk about. I'm playing a lot of other stuff. So
There you go.
yeah. So but yeah, I think we are done here. So we will wrapping this up. So
Cool.
yeah, thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time on Bits, everybody.